welcome to today's episode. Super excited to talk about this. We have looked at systems for some time now, and the principal idea of systems.io is that systems create results. That the results that you want can be generated and defined and consistently created by the system. Now, this means that you actually have to pay attention to the result that you want. Here's the coolest thing. Imagine that you could have any result that you wanted, and there would be a way to do that. There would be a system that will create that. What does this actually need? Well, what it needs is for you to define what that result is. And it could be something like a webinar funnel. It could be, hey, we want to run a Facebook campaign. We want to have a great client onboarding experience. We want to have regular up-to-date books. And whatever that definition of the result is, this is part of your responsibility as the entrepreneur, as the business owner, to actually define. Like you have to do some work here to say, this is the result that I want. And once you've got that, then you can go ahead and create the system. But if you don't have that result, if you're not clear on that result, if you've got mixed results, 2 or 3 results that are kind of joined together and related, but it's not clear, then you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle. You will not have a standard by which you can tell whether your system is actually giving you the result that you want. It will give you a result. There's no doubt about that. Like, you run that system and it will come out with something, but whether it is the result that you want, this is the critical insight that you must have. If you don't set that, how are you going to tell what to change? How are you going to tell even whether it's the right system to use? It doesn't really matter. If you don't have the result that you want, then you could create any system. It'll throw out all sorts of results. But if you do the work and you define the result, now you've got something that's worthwhile. Now you know the outcome that you're going for. And that you can build that system and you can look at the result and go, how does it compare? Did it give me what I wanted? Yes or no? If it did, great, you got a system that works. If it's no, you don't. And you've got to go back and go, okay, what needs to change? And you can look at it reasonably, logically, and go, okay, wait, it seemed to deviate here. What about if we tried this and we did this? Would that give us the result? Oh, yes, it does. Great. So troubleshooting a system is impossible if you don't have that desired result. So let's look at this as an example. Right now in Australia, you may not be aware of this if you're outside of Australia. You can't leave if you're an Australian citizen. So there's a total travel ban on leaving Australia. Now, you may have seen some of what's going on here. Like, it is some old school totalitarian bullshit going on. Like, it is hardcore. And we're at like 600 cases a day. I remember, like, it seemed to me like the UK was at 35,000 cases, the US like 45,000. Look, big numbers. But our politicians are so focused on a result that they're quite happy just to shut everyone down. They don't care whether people suicide. They don't care whether people are domestic violencing each other. They don't care whether people are drinking, whether they're losing their jobs, whether people are going insane over here. And so they're quite happy to stay focused on what? What is the result that they're actually going for? Here's the curious thing. New South Wales, is it a vaccination rate? Is it 60, 70, 80%? What is that vaccination number? And what are you actually going to do? You might do something. How about you lock it down to what you are going to do? But, well, what about infection cases? Isn't that what we're going for? I thought when the infection cases came down, that was when the lockdowns would end. So maybe we're focused on 0 infection cases. But there's people dying. Guess what? People die. You're going to die. I'm going to die. We're all going to die. No one gets off this planet alive. We're all going to die. Okay. So People are dying. Are we trying to go for 0 deaths? So what is it? Is it a vaccination rate that we're going for? Is it a case rate that we're going for? Is it a death rate that we're going for? And the reason that I bring this up is because this is an example where the result is not clear. And this means that you can easily set up things that don't make sense, that don't get you the result, that 2 of those results, 3 of those results all might be fighting each other. And so you don't get anything. You get a giant mess with a massive risk to societal destabilization. And you're like, fuck, where did the riots come from? I'm like, oh, you dumb people, what the hell? So let's look at this specifically. So let's say that you want to know that there was no deaths. So you don't want people getting infected. And that's why you're locking them down. It's like, stay home, stay home, stay home, stay home. I mean, they wrote a song about it, stay home. And that makes sense. Stay home, stay in the group. If you keep us in there for like 2 to 3 weeks and everyone who's going to get COVID from that family gets COVID, that's great. Okay, and then you just wait and it's done. But what about if you're like, okay, we want you to lock down, but we also want to know how many cases there are. So what we're going to do is get everybody who thinks they've got COVID to line up. Now, some of them have it and some of them don't, and they're all going to line up and go through the same testing place where they stick the thing in your nose and some of them sneeze and the stuff goes everywhere and the doctors and nurses have got the protective gear, but the people don't. And you feed the sick people and the well people all through the same thing. And some of them perhaps, if it's really contagious, actually catch the disease. Now, I'm like, okay, you got a choice here. You got a choice. You either got to say everyone stay home and no one leave the home. We're going to do it 2-3 weeks and then everyone who's got COVID should be done and we can go back. Or we need to know how many, go do the testing, and there's a risk that you will be catching COVID. Okay, but if you don't know what your result is, you are setting up processes that fight each other. And this happens in business. This happens in business because you're not clear on what your result is. What are you going for? You've got to be clear on that because then now you can assess the system. Is the system working? Yes. That's the result I want. That's the webinar funnel. It got done. That's the Facebook advertising campaign. It got done. That's the Facebook Live distribution system. It got done. That's the accounting. It got done. If you don't set the results and you don't have a clear result that you're going for, then you will create a giant mess. This is going on in our world right now. The transition that you have to make is that your results are coming from your systems, but you must know what the result is in order to create the system that leads to creating that result. Pretty easy. Pretty easy. This is not that hard. You just need to get the framework in your mind that the result is important to define and that the system can be created to create that result if you know what you want. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you got a lot of value out of today, that this is starting to open up a mindset in you about a systems mindset. This is the E-Myth. This is Work the System. All of these guys, Clockwork, they have got the systems mindset because they see the potential, the capacity, the power of systems to create results. All right, thanks for tuning in. See you tomorrow. Hope you got a lot of value out of it. See you then.